Well, hello again, friend. Welcome to Zach Treby School of Drums. I'm your host, Zach Treby, and I help career drummers obtain high-paying careers so that they could be happy and live full lives. Okay, so let's get into this today. So we're going to talk about how Anika Nilles got the call from Rush, and I'm going to go ahead and insert the blueprint about how she did that unknowingly, but she did that. And that's part of when you start your gig journey, so to speak. People don't really think about the opportunities that are going to come once you start, hitting the road, right, so to speak. And that's part of what I'm going to get into, how opportunities present themselves once you're on that, the engine, so to speak. So now check this out. So right now, Anika Nilles is huge, right? She was an industry drummer, and now a drumming industry, right, drummer. Now she's a music industry drummer. There's two totally different, it's two totally different things because most people, if you think about your average person, your average listener, right? The non-musician, right? I'll call them. They don't really know, like if you were to ask, let's say you were to ask at the cashier at like Stop and Shop or ShopRite. Like if you were to ask them if they're not a drummer and they're just, just some older person or whatever, random person, and ask them who Bill Bruford is, they probably won't know, so the point I'm making is Anika Nilles is now known amongst all the Rush fans, and a lot of the Rush fans are just that. They're fans. They might not be musicians, although that's how it started, right? That's how it started, because it's nerd music, and that's what I love about Rush. However, they've also gained popularity over the years, right? And became just, a band that everyone enjoys for the most part. And, when I went to see Rush when I was younger, when Neil Peart was alive, great testimonial. My mother, who is not a musician, she brought me to the concert, and she loved it. And she might not have known any of the songs, as far as I can remember, but it didn't matter. She was having a grand old time, having a blast, which is great. That's all you can ask for, right? So now, getting back to my point, is now all of the Rush fans know who she is. And what a testimony. She's never going to have to, after this, she'll never have problems working, meaning she'll have people knocking down her door. I'm sure they're going to continue, but how did she do it, right? Let's think about how did she get the gig. And you're going to hear a lot of the drummers and people say, oh, it's luck and all that nonsense, which we all understand is just a nice load of crap. Because if you understand anything about business, okay, because we're talking about the music business, right? And that means if you have a product, hence you are the product, guess what? You can build a business. And that's what I'm going to talk about today is how did she get it, right? Well, just like how you would get called if you're really good at let's say you're an electrician and you make a name for yourself. Well, and let's say someone offers you money to totally rewire the house, and you can charge a pretty penny for that. Or a company says, hey, we heard about you. We want to invite you to come work for our company. Guess what? It's the same thing. So let's get into some of the blueprint, how she got the high-paying gigs from Rush. And maybe you can too. Now, disclaimer. I'm not saying you're going to play with Rush. But what I am saying is you can get into that arena of caliber of artists that are around that. Okay. So in other words, that particular circle. Okay. Anyway, so let's kind of reverse engineer Anika's career a little bit. So right now she's with Rush. Where was she beforehand? Well, let's talk about that. How she started, right? She went to the Pop Academy, right? And she learned a lot about music business. Okay, that should tell you something right there. And, if you watch some interviews with her, she talks about how she learned a lot about music business. Well, one thing that we have understood about the music business, right, is right now in the music business, there's 2 stages, and she has done both. There's your physical stage, playing live on any level, okay? It doesn't have to be a big touring stage, although couldn't hurt. And then there's a digital stage, which is YouTube. Now, if you know anything about her, if you went back, and you can look this up on Wikipedia, okay, you will read that she started her career on YouTube, right, during the early 2010s, right? And on top of that, she's released like 3 full-length albums, right, so far. Now, I'm going a little ahead because I think the last one was about 2025, okay? So there was one album in 2017, another in 2020, and then the last one was 2025. Now, around those times, right, when she, so following that career, around those dates, she's been doing clinics and little small tours like that. Also, as far as big tours go, she was on Jeff Beck's tour, right? And Jeff Beck just happened to have within his crew Scully, the bass tech that Geddy Lee uses, okay? So that's Geddy Lee's bass tech. And Anika being on that tour, obviously, if you're a cool person, people are going to talk about you. That's a big deal. If you're an asshole, no one's going to talk about you. So let's get that straight. Okay, so, and that's exactly what happened. Scully, kept talking about this drummer, Anika, and how lovely she was. So right there, utilizing those 2 things, playing live, right, 1, and number 2, the digital stage, right? So she used both stages, the physical stage and the digital stage. So you could take her exact career and you could do the same thing. It might look a little different, but it'll be, opportunities will present themselves. That's what I'm telling you. Now, that's one particular blueprint direction, right? And of course, she's done, tours, clinic tours. She put together her own band called Neville, right? And they're very good. And if you'll notice, everything is documented on YouTube, and that's a big deal, right? And it's really no different than when bands were on TV shows, okay? Like, it doesn't matter who it is. Jimmy Fallon, you name it. It doesn't matter, right? Conan O'Brien, I don't think he's doing it anymore. But my point is it's television, right? Well, television, basically YouTube now is our television for musicians, okay? So it's always been around in some shape, manner, or form. So you put those together, right? Playing live, and then a television show or your YouTube channel, so to speak, you don't think you would get lots of opportunities? Of course you would. The amount of opportunities you would get just by starting a career as a drummer doing those 2 things would be astronomical. You know how I know this? Because I do this with my students and my coaching clients. It's not that hard. Basically, all I'm talking about is getting eyes on yourself. That means you gotta document everything, right? And you can look up any drummer online now on YouTube. And the reason why I stress YouTube right now is because it's evergreen. That's why. All right. In other words, if you post on Instagram or Facebook or a few of those other ones, it's here today, gone tomorrow. Okay. But with YouTube, it's always there. So that's the beauty of that. Okay. And I'm telling you, okay, dear friend, if you want to build a music career, You do these two things, just these two things. There's a few more things you can do, but I'm telling you, if you just do these two things, you will build a massive career. However, let's say you come to me and say, hey, Zach, I don't want to do any of those things. Can I still get gigs? Of course you can. And here's one of the things you can do, okay? So you don't have to do those two things. I would recommend it because people eventually want to know who you are. However, people have come to me and said, hey, YouTube's not my bag. Can I get high-paying gigs without doing any of that? I'm like, of course you can. Let's audition you for the cruise ship positions. And, of course, that's really easy because you're going to sign up for an audition and you're going to go in and do the audition. And people will know who you are, at least those particular people that are auditioning you. Right? And they'll either take you or they won't, depending on how well you did. So you don't need to do the playing live or the YouTube thing, but I would highly recommend it. I mean, you're going to play live anyway because obviously you got to play at your auditions. You got to do it. So, I'm really talking about documenting, right? And that's exactly what Anika did. If you go back to her Wikipedia and check it out. And when she started her career, that's what she did when she started, right? And now the thing about her is she happened to write music, her own music, right? That was a big plus. Is it necessary? I don't think so, because as long as you're demonstrating your ability, it could be cover music, but as long as you play well and you show your strong points, I really don't think it would be a problem, right? So if you happen to be able to write music, all the better, okay? And you could do that on the cheap too. You can record your music on the cheap, because now you can get music, studio programs for super, super cheap. Actually, there's one where it costs nothing. So, but that's a whole different video, okay? And I'm not trying to go that route, right? But anyway, so that's the kind of promotion I'm talking about, right? And we're kind of talking about like the run-of-the-mill building your career, right? That's exactly what Anika did. I'm sure she played like bar gigs somewhere, but there's a few ways you can go with this as far as promotion goes. So you can start in bar bands and then work your way up to better gigs. Or if you don't want to do that, you could just, you can work with somebody and get all the styles together for a cruise ship gig, right? Where you're playing 6 nights a week and you're making about $6,000 a month. Doesn't that sound nice? I think so. But then, so then you don't have to do those things I'm talking about, although it's still good to document everything. So I'm always going to tell my students and my coaching clients, and anyone else new who comes on, say, hey, listen, I'm telling you, promotion, that's where it's at, okay? And it's so easy these days. If you have an iPhone, that's all you need. You don't need a fancy camera, although it doesn't hurt, as long as it's easy to use and user-friendly, and not taking up all your time. Great. But my point is the television and the playing live has always been there for the most part. Only time it wasn't there is when you're talking about like the classical period, right? And some of the jazz period before television was a thing. But still, people played live, and recording wasn't even around at one point because the only way you could hear music is to either go see it, right? In the classical era, or get the sheet music, which was a huge industry at one point, right, before recording, and you had to play it. So that was the only way you can hear it, right? So we're spoiled. We have recordings, we have playing live, we have YouTube. I mean, we got so much available now, and people just kind of look at YouTube like, It's like, no, you could really build something, right? Look at it as businesses that advertise on commercials, or I think commercials are still a thing. They were a huge thing when I was growing up, And that's how you knew about stuff, was commercials. Well, guess what? What do you think YouTube is? It's one big commercial. I mean, come on, please. See, that's the thing. We can utilize this as our own little TV shows, and that's, you have podcasts, you have videos, you have how-to videos. I mean, we have so much now. It's almost overwhelming, right? So, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting eyes on you, and it's so easy. And my coaching clients that come to me, and the students I work with that were building their careers, it's so easy, and they're stunned how easy it is. I'm like, yeah, all you got to do is hit record, hit play, and go to town. Same thing with on gigs. If you're on like a bar gig, let's say, and you have your phone, put it on a stand, press play, and go to town. It doesn't need to be a huge thing, although you can make it a big thing and have this nice honking camera, and you can do that, right? Or you can hire a camera crew, which costs a lot of money, but it depends what you want to do, right? So that's all these things we're talking about, right? We're talking about the YouTube channel that Anika started, the clinic tours, the Jeff Beck tour, the Rush tour. I mean, that's all eyes. And we're surprised that Anika got the gig. I mean, look, come on. Let's not kid ourselves. And you know what? I've heard her say, and this is something noteworthy, right? I haven't even, what am I trying to say? I haven't even broached how she went about learning the gig when she got asked to join the reunion by Alex and Getty. Here's something that I haven't talked about a lot. You know what she did when she heard that she was going to get a call from Getty and Alex? She literally went and started researching everything she could about Rush, because I don't think she was a huge Rush fan, right? So that right there should tell you a lot about, how to prep for something like that. And, this really comes down to work ethic, and, whatever you do or end up doing as a drummer, you could put that kind of work ethic to work, right? And you can make it work for yourself, right? So that's a huge thing. And by the way, if you want to learn how to, build a business as a drummer, right? She goes into a little bit of detail on Drumeo, and she basically talks about promoting yourself, and all that's talking about is eyes, right? She talks about YouTube. She talks about social media, playing live, touring. If you could do all those things, great, because you are going to end up going towards high-paying gigs. You will. It's just one of those things that just is part of the package. Again, if that's your direction, if you want to go the Anika route, or if you want to go, towards like the cruise ship route or the mid-level touring, there's ways to get this, and it's so easy. People have no clue how easy it is. And there's ways to utilize YouTube to our advantage. There's so many things on how to make YouTube work for you. It's not even funny. And you're going to get those individuals that say, you can't play drums for a living. If you say so. And then you can turn around and do exactly that. You can say, well, thanks, bro. And then you do it anyway. So you're going to get that, and that's okay, because they're just not comfortable with where you are at and where you want to be, right? And that's the thing is, follow, how am I trying to say this? Follow the blueprints, right? If you can look up any drummer and see how they did it, I guarantee, even before YouTube, you could see they were either on television or they played live at first. I mean, or recorded records. That's another way of promoting. So it all works. It all works. And we think it doesn't. We think it's, way too hinged upon who we know, which that is true to a certain extent. But, there's a certain thing called promoting yourself, right? They used to call it selling yourself. So you could literally go through Anika's background and pinpoint exactly how she did it, and you could use the same kind of blueprint for your own thing. It'll look a little different, right? Because you're not in the same situations that she is or she was, and or is. But you can sure as heck use that and go, okay, I know how to play live. I know how to use YouTube. Just throw a camera in front of you. And let's say you're a drummer that lives in an apartment and you can't really play your drums. Okay, well, get an iPhone stand, rent some studio space, right? Studio rehearsal space. And during that hour or two, put it up right in front of your drums, record a few videos. There you have it. Boom. Case closed. So that's basically what it was. It was an opportunity because of what she had done previously or was doing, not only previously, but at the same time. She was always promoting herself, always. And it's so easy. It's so easy, through YouTube. Everything she did was on YouTube. Come on now. I mean, and it didn't take long. It didn't take long, especially in the beginning. It didn't take long. So, clinic tours, regular tours, playing live, playing on YouTube, and you just gotta go ahead and do it. Once a week. One video a week is not a lot to ask. And not only is it not a lot to ask, but you'll free up your time to do other things that kind of bring you like joy and energy, So I highly recommend that. And speaking of, building careers and blueprints, my Gig Ready Drummer challenges, right, that I run and that people join, all it is a 5 multi-day online challenge where people can come and learn about how to craft a blueprint for the gigs that they're trying to get, right? And I coach them through how to do that, and a lot of it is what we're already covering here. So I give them a direction, or I would give you a direction. And, there's not a lot of people, and I only allow like 5, right? Sometimes there's 3, but it doesn't really matter. But, it helps people. That's for sure. And also, oh, yes, I'm glad I'm not forgetting this. If you'd like, there is in the description below a link to the 12 highest paying gigs PDF. Now, it's not one of those instant downloads, and the reason why I set it up like that is, number one, I'm trying to build relationships with people, so it's gonna bring you to the sign up to get that PDF, right? So just ask for it. Just send a message and just say, hey, my name is so and so, and I'm interested in this PDF, and I'll be like, great, and I'll send it to you. Because how am I supposed to build relationships with people if I don't know who you are? So I don't get me wrong. I it's free, by the way. I like the instant downloads, but I don't get to know who you are. I don't get to have a conversation with you. And we got to get back to that, especially if you're a musician. We got you got to get back to talking with people and just getting comfortable, and that's part of it. Networking, just talking with people. You don't have to be a chatterbox, but if you want the 12 highest paying gigs, right, and it's a simple PDF, I'll send it to you. It's pretty great, right? But just ask for it, right? Just say, hi, Zach, my name is such and such. I'm interested in this. How you doing? And I'll send it to you. No problem. I will reply to your email. I promise you, right? This is no trick. I'm just trying to build relationships here. That's all I'm trying to do. So, and if you're interested in joining the challenge, there's a link to that below as well. And I got some other programs if anyone's interested. And they're pretty great, if I may say so myself, because it's super easy. So friend, thank you for joining today. This has been a lot of fun because I'm really excited for what Anika has done and I'm excited to see what she's going to do. And I get the added privilege of seeing her play with Rush in August. So my wife surprised me with tickets, and I'm really excited, really excited. So this is going to be great, to say the least. And she's on top of the world right now. And we know she ain't ever going to need to work for the rest of her life. but she will, knowing her, because I'm sure she's not done. I think she's my age, in her 40s. So anyway, good friend, I'm going to close off here. So stay tuned for the next video and talk soon.